To the fan hotline and welcome in John Greco, former Browns guard, current Browns analyst. He joins us right now on the hotline. Hello, John.
Hey guys, good morning.
What have you ever had to deal with a change in play callers or something like that in season?
Oh God, yeah. Are you kidding me?
All right, what's it like for the guys on the team?
In the room, in our room, it was, first of all, it's never the result of a good thing, as we all know. So it's not like, hey, everything's, roses and smelling good. Let's all of a sudden change play callers. There's a reason why they're doing it. It's desperation. It's something that's going haywire. It's an attempt to, right the ship and turn things around. And that's where they're at. And, we don't know whose decision that was. I was a little surprised, but obviously something needed done. But yeah, when you're in those rooms and that happens, you're just kind of like, oh God, the obvious is becoming a reality, and you have kind of a heightened sense of awareness, like, okay, this is the next attempt at before people start getting fired, or a bigger change has happened. So, like I said, a little bit of a desperation move, but look, you have a young guy that has had some success in college, and he's in the Browns staff now, and Tommy Rees, and it's a great opportunity for him, especially looking at some of the defenses that the Browns are going to face down the stretch here. There's opportunity, so it's a great opportunity for him and his professional future. But as a players, I don't know how much things can change. It's not like he has this secret, binder full of magical plays. I mean, it's going to be a lot of the same concepts, but we'll just see what he does and see if he brings kind of a different mix and style to how he calls the plays.
You use the word desperate. Does it have a negative effect on a locker room?
I don't think so, because those guys, no matter who's calling the plays, those guys still have to show up, buckle their chin straps, and run routes and block and catch and tackle. Not tackle, obviously, but put the ball in the right spot, execute. So, no, I don't think so. It kind of, I hinted on it. It's more of like, okay, here's where we're at. We're at the bye. They're changing play callers. The season's gotten away from us. It's not, we haven't had the results that we had all hoped. And, everybody can point fingers all over the place, and the season's been such a mess with the quarterback situation. And, we've talked about the passing game, and that's where we're at. So as players, I think it's just like, all right, the time is now. We have to show some sign of life and improve. And this is just the next, I don't want to say opportunity. This is just the next step before things get really dire and people start losing their jobs.
All right, so what really changes, though, when there is a change in play caller? How does it mechanically work inside the building? Because last year was a little different. It was the Ken Dorsey offense. This year it's back to the Stefanski offense, who I would assume he was bringing along Tommy Rees under the, let's say, tenets of his philosophy. So should we expect anything different?
That's a great point, and I guess I'd never really thought of it like that, but you're right. It makes a lot of sense that Kevin Stefanski's kind of grooming Tommy Rees to think and act like him and call plays like him. And what is that offense? It's, running the ball effectively and play action. Well, we just haven't seen that, and this team just hasn't executed that style. So is Tommy Rees all of a sudden going to pivot from that and just be spread and throwing, all these vertical passing, route trees together? I don't know. It's kind of hard to do that over the bye week and just completely reinvent the playbook. But what that means is, you might see Tommy Rees' spin just within the practices and say, oh, hey, this is a new concept or a route combination. But, from an O-line perspective, it's still the same protections. It's not going to look any different. Those guys might get excited because, oh, hey, it looks like this is going to be a bigger run emphasis, and we're going to try to get, number 10 going. Or, we're going to take more shots, and that could be the hidden message in the script and in the game plan. But beyond that, like I said, I don't know how it's going to be that much different from what we're currently seeing. It just might be, breaking tendencies. If they're more run heavy on first down, they might throw the ball on first down and try to open it up. But I'm going back to what I said earlier. I think this is a great opportunity for Tommy Rees. He's going to have to make a change, because if you continue to just show the same things and call the same stuff, it's still not going to work. So he's got to do something, and we'll see what that means. If it's different route combinations, if it's just different running, if they go back to more gap scheme runs, or if they're trying to, attack the perimeter more, time will tell.
John Greco joining us here on the hotline. So does this mean we're any closer to Shedeur Sanders? Because I'm just trying to throw some things out there. So you help me. Have you ever had a 4-quarterback competition in camp at all when you were playing?
No,
Okay.
no. I've damn sure played for 4 different quarterbacks in a season.
Well,
but go ahead.
I've certainly cheered for 4 different quarterbacks in a season before. John, so they had 4 different quarterbacks at camp, and I'm like, well, he's the head coach, he's the play caller, he's got to get ready for a season, so he's probably working primarily with Joe and with Kenny. Now those guys are gone. You have a younger guy there. Maybe he wasn't really working with him as much as Tommy Rees was, talking about Dylan Gabriel. So he's going to get a different set of eyes on him, maybe get a guy in there who might know he's a little bit more comfortable. And then I'd have to assume, or I'm trying to assume, the same with Shedeur Sanders. Should I assume as much, or is that just kind of reading too much into it?
I think that's a safe assumption. And, now that this is kind of the second part of the season, and we can draw a line in the sand here, and now we're talking about the Tommy Rees offense. Mm-hmm. And does it feature more, getting the quarterback on the run and trying to I don't want to say make it easier for them, because, my God, it seemed like everything was checked down city. So I don't know what that means for these young quarterbacks. But, best believe in those offensive meeting rooms, Tommy Rees is behind the scenes looking at the iPads, the film, the script, talking with the 2 younger quarterbacks. And now that he's running the show, that he has kind of less time to do that, because it's more of a bigger picture thing for him. And maybe Kevin Stefanski will have more time to do that now. I don't know what his role is going to be in the offensive room now. Obviously he's going to be another set of eyes, and he'll have his input and put in his 2 cents. But maybe he'll be able to just kind of get in the weeds more with Shedeur, with Dylan Gabriel, and we'll see what that looks like. But, yeah, I think it's a safe assumption, and it seems like we're getting a little bit closer to seeing Shedeur Sanders in the game. But, if something happens and this Tommy Rees offense looks different, I mean, and they're able to score more points, which I don't know how it's magically going to happen. But if that's the case, and they do, and like I said, you have the Jets, you have the Raiders, you have Cincinnati's terrible defense, so there are chances to where that they could at least look better than what we've seen. So if that happens, that's going to look even worse for Kevin Stefanski. But I don't know. Getting back to the 2 young quarterbacks, I think in those meeting rooms, these guys will have a chance to put them both together and say, hey, look, here's the new style. Here's whatever new concepts, new plays we're going to be dialing up, queuing up, and we'll see.
John Greco with us right now on the hotline. So I'm thinking about the trade deadline, and, Wyatt Teller kind of brought it up yesterday about how they're not really always thinking about that, but it's in the back of their minds. What was it like as a player around this time, and what do you think the Browns might do?
Yeah, I don't know if I was ever in a situation or a conversation to be a piece that would be moved, but it seems like this is always a popular week for fans and for players a little bit less. But sometimes, when you're being pulled out of a situation and going to a playoff team, that's an opportunity for a veteran. And, even though they might not want to uproot their lives and leave their families and leave their teammates in the locker room if they're used to being there, like a guy, like you said, Wyatt Teller, that's made Pro Bowls here and been a big part of a lot of the Browns' success since he's been in town. That's tough. But, if you uproot a player like that and all of a sudden he's in Buffalo, he's in Detroit, he's in Kansas City, on the surface and for a while it might be emotional. He might say, hey, look, yeah, I'm sad to leave those guys, but, he's getting another opportunity to try to compete for a Super Bowl. So I don't know if players sure as hell aren't hoping that's going to happen, but it's not always a bad thing. But yeah, it's difficult this time of year, especially when you see teammates' names being thrown around. I'm old enough to remember when the Joe Thomas to Denver conversation was on fire, and he was like, "Look, as much as I do." And a lot of the players, and a lot of times you hear the noise, outside, and it becomes just kind of a rumor mill. And in the building, the players have to still go to work, and they have to act like it's not going to happen, and they're going to be, on the roster today at 4:01 and practicing tomorrow. So it's a difficult time of year, but it's not always a bad thing. You hate to see players leave, but a lot of times it's for the better for them professionally and personally, and it gives them an opportunity to maybe compete for a deep run in the playoffs and potentially a Super Bowl.
Well, what about Joe Petonio there? When you like Lima's person, like I heard your guards are up for grabs. Like, well, Joel's up for grabs possibly.
Yeah,
is it the same for him?
That would be a tough pill to swallow. A guy that's played here his entire career, and look, that it would be like what I just said about Joe Thomas in Denver. I'm sure there's a lot of playoff teams that could use Joel's help and use Wyatt's help. I mean, those guys are terrific, and these conversations are always going to come about during trade deadlines. And it sucks to have them, but it's the reality. That's the business. And we have time to be emotional because we're on the outside looking in. And Joel, I'm sure it would be very, very difficult if he were to be moved, for him and for the locker room and for the city and the fans and the organization. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and that's the brass and the front office are going to make moves that they think is going to make the team better in the long run in the future. And if it means that, they're going to do it, regardless of what we all think. And that's the unfortunate part of being a fan and being a player. But as a player, if that happens, I get back to the points I was just making. It is what it is, and you're packing up, you're kissing your wife and your kids goodbye, and you're going, and it's on to a different opportunity, a different team. But that would be very difficult.
What advantage, if anything, does Aaron Glenn get by not telling the media who his starter is going to be on Sunday?
I never understood that. I don't know if it's an advantage. It just. The defense has to prepare a little bit differently, I guess you can say. But I just think that coaches do that so they don't have to answer questions from the media. It's just, hey, listen, we don't know. We'll let you know. We'll let you know. They know who's starting a quarterback. But I think it's just kind of a thing to where they're kicking the can down the road and they're trying to delay any answering questions and reasoning. Well, why? This and that. So I think it's more of a strategy that they're just behind the scenes. Like, look, we know we have a plan in place. Maybe it creates a competitive advantage. The defense can't, key in on a certain player. But I think it's all about let's just keep everything tight and keep it under wraps, and we'll disclose that information when we have to and go play the game.
What was the weirdest thing that was given out during trick or treat in your neighborhood?
I don't know if it's there was no apples or anything.
Let me ask you this.
That. Yeah.
Is ramen a weird thing to be given out during trick or treat?
Yeah, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. Other than giving out a toothbrush, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, my son got a pack of ramen at one of the houses he went to, and I didn't notice it until yesterday. That
just seems like they ran out of candy, and they were like, okay, what's the next best thing that we can just throw in this kid's bag to make it look like we're trying? And he got ramen.
The great John Greco on the Fan Hotline. John, thank you very much for the time. God bless.
Guys, thank you.
John Greco on the Fan Hotline.